When my brother and I were around 12 years old, like 2006, we were at my dad and stepmom's house in the afternoon, probably around 3 p.m., so still broad daylight. My brother and I were the only two people home because my dad, stepmom, and younger siblings were in a nearby town for their youth soccer game. The two of us were lounging in my dad's room, which was located at the back of the house, and watching a movie when we heard a knock on the front door. My brother and I grew up with our single mom and were latchkey kids, so being home alone and having people stop by wasn't concerning or weird for us, especially back in those days where it was more common for friends to drop by your house to see if you were home since not every kid had a cell phone to get in touch. But on this day, we were at my dad's house, like I said, and didn't know anyone in the neighborhood. So the knock at the door was weird since none of our friends or relatives lived nearby to come over randomly. Both of us wanted to ignore the knocking and wait for the person to go away, but being latchkey kids in a house where it wasn't normal for people to stop by unexpectedly, my instinct was to go make sure the door was locked. We sure as hell knew better than to go and make our presence known and damn sure weren't going to open the door. But in my mind, there was no getting around one of us going to make sure nothing was unlocked. I knew my brother and could tell that he wasn't going to do it, so I volunteered because it was an overwhelming priority. I got up and stealthily creeped down the hallway leading from my dad's room to the front door. There was a window next to the door, so I crouched around and very carefully peeked between the blinds before reaching out and twisting the door lock as silently as I could. It was unlocked, so I'm so damn glad I went to check. When I peeked out the window, I saw a middle-aged man, slim and tall but not huge, and bald on the top with some short salt and pepper hair wrapping around the sides of his head. He had his hands behind his back. I can't recall if it was one hand or both, and in one of his hands was a metal object that I took for a knife, but to this day I can't say for sure what he was holding. He did not see me looking at him through the window, or if he did, he at least didn't look at me and let me know that he knew I was there. And the way the house was designed, the front door wasn't visible from the street, because there were bushes and tall trees blocking it. My 12-year-old heart sank knowing this random guy was at the door with what I thought was a knife behind his back, or at the very least a metal object that he felt was necessary to put behind his back. It was especially terrifying because I recognized it was actually not super unrealistic, since the man would not be visible from the street, and therefore could hide something behind his back without worrying about neighbors or cars passing by and seeing him. This house would be a good target for someone looking to do bad stuff, since you'd be shielded from being seen. At this point, normal paranoia became full-on fight-or-flight panic mode. It was like a switch was flipped from, let me just go make sure the door is locked, to, holy shit, I think there's a guy with a knife at the door. I creeped back to my dad's room and told my brother what I'd seen. He grabbed the house phone, can't remember if there was one in my dad's room or if he had to go to another room, but before long he was speaking with my dad on the phone. My dad immediately instructed us to let his Rhodesian Ridgeback buddy in from the backyard. Let me tell you, in a situation of pure terror, having a big loud dog was the only bit of hope or relief. Without Buddy there, I don't even want to imagine sitting in that feeling of terror without any hope of someone or something there to save you as a child, or at least give a sense of having a chance. From there, my brother and I locked ourselves in a bathroom by the front door, not sure why we decided to hide in the closest room to the guy outside. From inside the bathroom, we called 911 while my brother clutched a kitchen knife, both of us ugly crying and struggling to get words out to the operator. While in the bathroom, I swear on my life I heard the front door handle being twisted around, which would have meant the guy was now trying to enter the house. The bathroom was like 7 feet from the front door, so I feel like I know what I heard. I don't know how I could confuse such a specific sound, so I trust that it was what I thought it was. I have such a vivid memory of huddling in that bathroom, feeling truly helpless and out of control of what might happen next, with the only comfort being the noise of Buddy barking at the front door and knowing that if the guy decided to kick the door down, he'd have to deal with a big dog, then have a knife fight with 2 kids. Needless to say, I was really hoping Buddy would hold it down for us because I didn't like our odds if the man at the door got past Buddy. Before long, the cops arrived, and shortly after my dad and stepmom got home too, apparently having jumped in her maroon minivan and doing like 100 miles per hour to make the 15-mile drive back home after we called. The guy was gone by then, and nothing ever came of it. To this day, my dad's theory is that the guy at the door was his neighbor coming over to complain, 'Cause apparently Buddy would always bark at the neighbor while he was doing yard work. So my dad thinks the neighbor was trimming bushes and therefore just happened to have clippers or something in his hands when he came over to complain. Sounds reasonable enough, but I wish I had asked at the time to see the neighbor, 'cause then I could for sure identify him and know what the situation was. Personally, I'm open to my dad's theory, but it always seemed to me that my dad clung to it more for his own comfort, since the alternative would be a parent's nightmare. If it were the neighbor, though, some things don't make sense, like the guy conveniently showing up when no cars were in my dad's driveway since they'd left to go to the soccer game like 20 minutes prior. Seems like coming over when it appeared nobody was home would be a weird time to expect your neighbor to answer the door, or the guy trying to twist the handle like I'm pretty damn sure I heard. Not a very neighborly act, trying to enter someone else's home when they're gone. Either way, whether the threat was real or imagined by my brother and I, our experience was as real as it gets. What I learned is that sometimes perception really is reality, at least in your own mind. Like the feeling of thinking we were living a nightmare was authentic and visceral because we believed we were living a nightmare. What the explanation was, I can't say for sure, and it bothers me so much that I'll never know with certainty if we were that close to God knows what. No clue why my dad never followed up with the neighbor, but looking back, it seems pretty clear that the adults wrote it off as the product of kids' imagination.